entertaining of an individual The Rock is after achieving so much in Hollywood, can you imagine how physical this feud would be and how just entertaining and how it would have wrestling fans on the edge of their seats and talking about it on social media? Back in 1998, 1999, it was one hell of a rivalry. It was hot, seeing what The Rock and Triple H were doing for the Attitude Era. And can you imagine the conversation now with social media and the tweeting of photos and videos on Facebook? I mean, we didn't have Facebook and Twitter back then, so can you imagine social media having a role in this and what kind of role it would play in The Rock and Triple H's feud when they weren't feuding on wrestling shows? They could be feuding on Twitter and Facebook and posting videos and tweets in response to everything happening in their feud, keeping fans in that informative loop. I mean, can you imagine how big of a feud it was back then, and can you imagine just how big of a feud it would be now? I mean, let's get going with something for The Rock and Triple H. They were two of the greatest of their generation. Wrestling fans obviously remember them for being two of the greatest of their generation. And with the creativity at a low time in WWE right now, I think we can have a high time of creativity with The Rock and Triple H, because really, what have you got creatively in WWE to rely on now? King Barrett is going nowhere. The feud with Seth Rollins and the Shield members, with Seth Rollins being champion, Dean Ambrose and Roman Reigns. I mean, really, is that an entertaining feud for you as a wrestling fan? What do you want to see? You want to see something like The Authority going up against Sting and The Undertaker, which is really what WWE are relying on to happen now and to come through for them, because they know Seth Rollins feuding with the championship over his shoulder against the Shield members and keeping the feud with him being champion in the Shield. It's not really what wrestling fans want to see. And apart from that, you have the Intercontinental Championship scenario with Ryback now being Intercontinental Champion, which I don't see going anywhere, and King Barrett going nowhere. So with WWE Creative having a low time right now, I think that WWE really is crying out for a match like The Rock and Triple H. And with how Sting and Triple H really let us down, I think I can get away with saying that wrestling fans are sort of crying out for a feud that's actually worth talking about. I mean, Sting and Triple H's match at WrestleMania 31 before it went down at WrestleMania was talked about so much, probably more so than any other match on the WrestleMania 31 card. And when it came down to it, it was the third match on WrestleMania just so they could have that segment between The Rock and Triple H, Ronda Rousey and Stephanie, with Triple H being taken down by Ronda at the end of the segment, which actually lasted for about 15, almost 20 minutes, making up for some extra time they had on the WrestleMania show. So Sting and Triple H come up third on the WrestleMania card. It was about a half-hour long. DX and the NWO get involved. Triple H hits Sting in the face with a sledgehammer. Shawn Michaels super kicks Sting in the face the way he did. They could have treated Sting better. It pissed me off, the conclusion of that match, and I think that really with how it let us down, I think as wrestling fans we are crying out for another dream match, and that dream match could be The Rock and Triple H to make up where Sting and Triple H let us down, and it let us down in more ways than one. I don't know about you, but the conclusion of Sting versus Triple H is still pissing me off, and WrestleMania was, what, 3 months ago? And I'm still talking about it. I'm not over what happened in Sting versus Triple H. I probably never will be over what happened in Sting versus Triple H, and that's why I'm saying let's get going with The Rock and Triple H. I wanted The Rock, let me tell you this, I wanted The Rock at WrestleMania 31 to whoop the hell out of Triple H for what happened in that match with Triple H and Sting, because it came after what happened between Sting and Triple H, which is obviously the reason why Sting and Triple H came before the segment with The Rock, Triple H, Ronda, and Stephanie. And I wanted The Rock to beat the Jesus out of Triple H, especially with how fans were all there for The Rock. Everybody couldn't believe they were wiping tears out of their eyes when they saw The Rock and Triple H go face-to-face. I used a graphic for a previous video blog I did on this YouTube channel of The Rock and Triple H going face-to-face at WrestleMania, as I'm doing for this week, with a more updated look for the graphic for this week's video, and I was really high on it. I wanted to see a dream match. I am a sucker for these dream matches. When it came to Sting versus Triple H, I was all over it. When it came to The Rock and John Cena for the first time a number of years ago, back in 2012 at WrestleMania 28 in Miami, I was all over that. I was a huge supporter of The Rock. The only difference is between The Rock and John Cena and Sting and Triple H, The Rock came through, Sting didn't. I was really pissed off over that, and I think a match between The Rock and Triple H would really make up where Sting and Triple H let us down, because Sting and Triple H let us down in more ways than one. There are a lot of other dream matches that could make up for that. Sting and The Undertaker is another one that could make up for it, but I see The Rock versus Triple H happening before Sting versus The Undertaker does, because I really think that because they're two of the greatest of their generation, they will come through, and they are two people that have been depended on for years and could still be being depended on because of just how consummate they were back in the 1990s. They were given opportunities through 95 and 96. They were given the chance to make names for themselves, and they did make names for themselves because of the feuds they had with themselves and other individuals who were involved in the same era they were. And because they were involved the way they were with the Attitude Era, that's why the WWE got ahead of WCW the way that they did. And that's why wrestling fans, whenever they're given the chance to revisit old school footage of The Rock and Triple H, they get the chance to. They go back on the network, they go back on their on-demand providers, and they watch matches like that. And that's why whenever the conversation The Rock and Triple H's match ever comes up, they're always talking about it. That's why I want a prediction from you guys and who you think would come out on top if this match ever happened 15 years after we saw one of the greatest rivalries of all time. What do you think would happen if it came down to The Rock and Triple H at a SummerSlam or a WrestleMania in the future? Would Triple H come away with the win with his creative control, or would they give it to The Rock like they did with John Cena at WrestleMania 28 in The Rock's first one-on-one match in almost 10 years? Who do you think will win this match? My prediction would have to be The Rock, and I'm going with The Rock because I'm a die-hard fan of The Rock. With the number of times that Triple H got the better of The Rock in their old-school feud, I think they can give one more win to The Rock, putting another win in the W column for The Rock, because The Rock lost so many times to Triple H back in the day. And the number of times Triple H outperformed The Rock definitely outdid The Rock, and that's why Triple H was ahead in their feud so much. 6-5 in the Iron Man match from Judgment Day in 2000. Of course, the very first SmackDown, Triple H having Shawn Michaels superkick The Rock in the face the way he did, and with 6-5 being the conclusion number for the Iron Man match, and with Shawn Michaels superkicking The Rock in the face the way he did, and the face-to-faces we're seeing now between The Rock and Triple H, either pre-recorded or done live on pay-per-views, I think they can give one more W for The Rock in the win column, because The Rock needs that over Triple H, because he has a lot of a personal grudge, an issue that's been unsettled for years with Triple H. And with the number of times Triple H has beaten The Rock, with Triple H having a win streak, some say, over The Rock, I think I would go with The Rock before I ever would Triple H. So The Rock is my prediction to come out of this one with the win. Not to mention how high the ratings would be, how high the conversation would be, how many pay-per-view buy rates we would see for digital cable and satellite subscribers, and how many subscribers we'd see for the network. We'd probably see an all-time record set for subscribers to the network, more especially if The Rock and Triple H's match was going to happen and wrestling fans knew it was going to happen. So yeah, I'm a supporter of The Rock and Triple H's feud, and I'll continue to be a supporter of The Rock and Triple H's feud until it happens, just as I will for Sting and The Undertaker, just as I will for CM Punk and Steve Austin. There are so many dream matches I've been talking about for a long time, ever since at least 2013, so that would take me back about 2 years. I've been talking about matches like The Rock and Triple H and Stone Cold Steve Austin and CM Punk. Let's get going with these dream matches. Some of them have happened, others still have time to happen, and we can still see them happen because there still is time. And no matter what the dream match would be, even if it was CM Punk and Stone Cold Steve Austin, I'd still have just as much conversation going on about that one as I would for The Rock and Triple H if it didn't happen up until that point. We saw a match in the way of Steve Austin and CM Punk. There is so much creative potential in WWE, and I'm not knocking the new talent that have been saying that they wouldn't be able to get the job done, because without question they probably would be able to get the job done. You have so many talented new talented wrestlers. You have Sheamus, you have Dolph Ziggler, you have Wade Barrett, who I'm not really a big fan of being King Barrett because I think he should be Intercontinental Champion as opposed to Ryback. But you have so many incredible new talented wrestlers who could get it in there and probably mix it up with some of the best of the Attitude Era, although it's believed that over 85% of the new talented roster wouldn't have lasted in the Attitude Era. You take a wrestler like Dolph Ziggler, who really puts me in mind of a young Mr. Perfect or Shawn Michaels back in the early 90s. I think if they were ever given the opportunity, I think at least probably I'd say 60 through 65% of the new talent would probably be able to last during the Attitude Era. Definitely CM Punk would have lasted, even though people believe he wouldn't have lasted. Dolph Ziggler probably is another one. Sheamus is another one who probably would have lasted during the Attitude Era, and definitely I think they, if ever given the opportunity, probably would have lasted in the Attitude Era. There's just something about these legends wrestling all the time in the way of Undertakers, Rocks, Triple H's that wrestling fans can never get enough of, and that's because it's putting into perspective just how much of a diehard fan of professional wrestling you actually are. It's a legitimate fact when you're a diehard fan of wrestling, when you can never get enough of The Rock and Triple H or The Undertaker and Sting, say. If you can never get enough of these dream matches, you obviously are a diehard fan of professional wrestling, and hey, I have this to say to you. I am a supporter of how you feel about professional wrestling because I feel the same way. We never see enough of Sting. We never see enough of Brock Lesnar. We never see enough of Triple H, and I think that never enough is something that we can go with. And I think that, the more we see these legends, the better it is. The higher the ratings are, the higher the conversation is throughout social media. There's a lot that can happen when legends go one-on-one, and hey, I'm a supporter of you, and there's nothing wrong with being a supporter of legends, and there's nothing wrong with wanting to see these dream matches and debating what would ever happen if Daniel Bryan ever faced Bret Hart in a submission match. There's nothing ever wrong with debating CM Punk versus Stone Cold Steve Austin, or what would ever happen if The Rock and Triple H ever tied it up one more time 15 years after witnessing one of the greatest rivalries of all time. So give me your opinion in the comments of this video blog on our YouTube channel at Jonathan Clarke 22. Tweet me your opinion on Twitter at Jonathan Clarke 1, and send me a message in my Facebook or on my Facebook wall at ECW Entertainment. Let me know how you feel about this match and how you see it going. And I think we're going to get a very diverse response when it comes to predictions for this match. I'd say on one side of the coin, 50% of you are going to be for The Rock, and on the other side of the coin, the tail side of the coin, if heads is for The Rock, tails can be for Triple H. We're going to get the other 50%, and it's equally going to be distributed, and that's what creates diversity, and that's what I can't tell you I appreciate enough, because diversity is something we didn't see back in the 90s. Back in the 90s, I think that if the newer generation of wrestling fans were there to visit this feud, I think that over 100% of you, that's all of you, would probably be for someone like The Rock in the feud, and there would be no one for Triple H, really demonstrating a face going up against a heel character, which was really put on display back in the 90s. Very few people were for the heel characters, and that's what differentiates wrestling from the past with wrestling of the present, because in wrestling of the present, we have so many for the fan favorite, and we have so many for the heel. And there have been more times than enough I've caught myself being for the heel character. The Rock came in. I was a diehard fan of The Rock. He was considered the heel in the feud with John Cena, and the reason why he was considered the heel was because John Cena had always been there, and he was always the guy who was a consummate worker in WWE, and The Rock was kind of just coming in as a visitor who wanted to challenge John Cena to establish his legacy for being one of the greatest of all time, and he did that. But even though The Rock was the heel, I was for The Rock, and there have been more times in matches with Triple H and Randy Orton when Randy Orton was the fan favorite, Triple H was the heel, and I was for Triple H. Just because I say I hate a wrestler does not mean I hated a wrestler all my life, because there was a point